Again, welcome to Wine and Food Pairing 101. This was actually our most requested class or most asked question by members in the novel pairings community. So I figured this had to be the first one that we did. We have a whole slide dedicated to members' requests for like, what do I pair with this dish? And some of you got really specific on it, which I absolutely love. It has sent me down an interesting cooking path, that's for sure. So for the members who are here, Monica, Jessica, Amelia, Tara, Maggie, Allison, Kimberly, I think I got all of you. Thank you for joining us and for giving me the feedback to get this class going. So why me? Why am I teaching about wine? So like I kind of alluded to earlier, I fell into the wine business with my day job. I, on like the 9 to 5, am the managing editor for Wine Business Monthly. We are a trade publication for wineries and growers. So I don't rate wine on a daily basis. That would be super fun. I write about the yeast we use to do fermentations and the point of sale systems to like that you see at the tasting rooms. So it's all of the behind the scenes stuff, but it's given me a really interesting look into the wine business and has gotten me absolutely obsessed with wine. So much so that I went through and completed my Wine and Spirits Education Trust Level 4 diploma. Funny enough, Monica here was actually one of my instructors, so thank you, Monica. It's a really rigorous process. It's about 3 years of study. You have to take 6 different exams. You have to know a lot about a lot of different wine regions. Like if you can see the blue binders here down at the bottom, those were all of my textbooks that I will never get rid of because I studied them way too much. But again, it did give me like a really good knowledge base of wine, instilled a love of it. And then it made me realize that I love teaching and talking about wine, and I want to share it with people in a way that's fun and engaging. So you will never hear me tell you that your wine opinions are wrong. There is no wrong wine opinion. You like it, you don't, and that's really all that matters. However, if you want to start pairing a little bit more, then I'm here to help you kind of understand the basics, understand the rules, and then use that to make sure that you're drinking wine you like with food you like. So I'm always here to answer questions about wine. Like literally email me any time of day. I'll be like, yes, here, how can I help you? So that's who I am. That's why I'm teaching about wine. Hopefully you guys love it as much as I do. So what we're going to do today, we're going to first go over the rules. There are 4 basic rules of wine and food pairing. Then we'll go into what food does to wine, because guess what? Wine doesn't really affect the food. It's more so the food affecting the wine. We're going to do a little taste test. We're going to put this into practice. We'll go through some of the classic pairings, and I will wax poetic about why I love fried chicken and champagne. And then we'll move on into questions. Okay. So just in case, I want to give us a minute or two to get set up. I sent out a prep guide, and I offered up 3 different kinds of wines. So the first 2 were the more mandatory, right? A light white wine like a Pinot Grigio. I'm using the Sea Glass Pinot Noir, or I'm sorry, Pinot Grigio. Wow, that was a Freudian slip. Sea Glass Pinot Grigio. Actually really enjoy this one. I didn't think I would, but I quite like it. For our heavy red wine, we're going to go with the Klein Old Vine Zinfandel. And then if you were able to find it or you were interested in it, a sweet white wine. So I know I recommended a Sauterne. However, this Tokai is one of my absolute favorites. So I used this class as an excuse to buy a $40 bottle. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. The sweet wine is not mandatory. If you have all of these or none of these, that's great. That's fine. We can still go through and talk about all of this. Just a quick show of hands. Who did manage to get the sweet white wine? So I can kind of pace myself. Just 1, 2. Okay, cool. So we'll just kind of quickly go through that one. I'm sorry, it breaks my heart a little bit because I'll savor the Tokai for everybody here. Okay, is everybody's and then so that's the glasses. You need the white wine in a glass, the red wine in a glass, and then hopefully you have a lemon wedge, 2 to 3 pieces of a cookie. Nilla wafers works great. It's a nice nostalgic throwback. I have a chocolate chip cookie because Jessica, you asked about that, and so that got me really excited to go to a bakery and get some like hefty chocolate chip cookies, and then some salt. Okay, everybody good? I'm kind of all set. All right, cool. So let's get into it. So why are we talking about this? Why is wine and food pairing so difficult sometimes? Part of that is just the fact that wine is really complicated. In general, the industry hasn't done anything to kind of uncomplicate it. We have so many different regions and so many different varieties, and everybody tastes a little bit different. My reaction to tannin is going to be different than, say, Emilia's, right? Or say, to Tara's. So we all perceive it a little bit differently. Wine is naturally, for a very, very long time, for millennia, been part of the dinner table. But that's not necessarily true here in the United States. As much as I hate to talk about it, we were founded by Puritans, and they believed in temperance and the evils of alcohol. We then went through a fun little period in the 1920s called Prohibition, where all alcohol was illegal. And a lot of the laws and regulations that were created during Prohibition still apply today. So if a restaurant wanted to open up, they have to apply separately for a liquor license and go through all of these different hassles that a lot of other places wouldn't have to. So we are still reeling from the effects of that. Wine is just not part of the home dinner table, and it's not necessarily always part of the restaurant table either. Fun fact, if you've ever complained about shipping for wine directly from the winery, you can thank Prohibition for that as well. Wineries are not necessarily allowed to direct ship. They can only ship into certain states, and then there's a whole extra set of laws and regulations around that. So that's kind of the basis. You know, it hasn't been part of our culture yet, but we're working on it. It's getting there. And it's kind of courses like these, it's people trying out different wine pairings with different foods that give us a little bit more of a cultural basis to really talk about it. So the rules. If you remember nothing else from this class, remember these 4. Okay. The first thing is eat what you like with what you like to drink. There is no pairing in the world that will be so good that if you absolutely hate Cabernet Sauvignon, you're going to change your mind just because it paired differently with the food. If you hate sweet wine, no pairing is going to change that. I could tell you that swordfish and Chardonnay go together really well, but if you don't like swordfish, you're not going to enjoy it. So in general, just eat what you like with what you like to drink. The second is that this is not a perfect science. Some days you're going to think this pairing is great, and other days you're going to say, God, what was I thinking? I definitely had a Cabernet Franc from Virginia and a chicken piccata that one day I thought was absolutely stunning. And then 2 weeks later, tasted it and was like, what the hell? Erin, come on. It all depends on how you're feeling that day. Are you in a good mood? Are you in a bad mood? Are you with your friends? Are you out at a really nice restaurant and the sommelier told you this was a great pairing? All of those little tricks will affect how your brain perceives this pairing. The third is that the food affects the wine. The wine does not affect the food. So if you're out at a fancy restaurant, make sure that the food you're ordering does not affect that $500 bottle of wine that you bought. And I just threw that number out because I was in San Francisco recently and I saw that on a wine list and went, no, okay, we're not doing that. And then lastly, things that grow together go together. Portuguese style food goes well with Portuguese wine. Italian food goes well with Italian wines. In Tuscany, they do Florentine steaks with Tuscan wines, right? With Chiantis, where things that grow together go together. And there's a reason for it, which we'll get into in just a little bit. Okay, do all of those rules make sense?
my takeaway right there.
All right, perfect. So the types of food that we're going to consider today, all of the things that you taste, salt, acid, savory or umami type characters, spicy, hot foods, sweet foods, fried, bitter, and intensely flavored. Okay. In general,
Caroline,
nothing else. Your wine-friendly foods are those that have a lot of salt and acid. If you think about when you're cooking and your dish is lacking flavor, what do? You add salt or you add acid to it, right? And then all of a sudden, the flavor of the different components, the different ingredients in your dish, they're amplified. The same thing holds true with wine. Okay, so this is why we say most food goes well with most wines, right? If you're making a dish, it's going to have some salt. It's likely going to have some acid. It's going to do great things and help amplify the flavor of your wine. Your wine unfriendly foods are literally everything else. I hate saying that, but it is kind of true. Spicy hot foods, super umami savory foods, bitter, sweet, intensely flavored foods. They all have much more of an impact on the wine. And they do that by decreasing the flavors and the fruit components that we would normally expect to taste in a wine. So we're going to go through each of these individually, but I wanted to get that out of the way so that you kind of had a baseline for how we talk about this. All right, so I'm going to lump salt and acid together because they basically do the same thing. So when you pair a salty or acidic food with your wine, all it's going to do to the wine is increase the flavor profile, all of the good fruits, red fruit in red wine, white fruit or green fruit, tropical fruit in your white wines. And it's also going to increase the perception of body. So body is the weight of the wine. So if you were to take a sip of one of your wines right now and just let it sit on your tongue, you'll notice that it has a little bit of weight to it, right? If it has more weight, your tongue's going to want to sink down to the bottom of your mouth. If it's lighter, it's going to feel like water and you could easily swish it around. For a lot of light-bodied wines like Pinot Grigios, for example, salt and acid give it a little bit more heft and texture and weight on the palate. And that's a really great thing to have, especially for some of your super easy drinkers. I have actually now it's $6.49, Gruner Veltliner from Trader Joe's that I buy by the case. And it is the lightest bodied, super acidic wine. It loves a meal because it gives this wine a little bit something more to it than just slightly flavored alcoholic water. Okay. Now, on the other hand, a salty or acidic dish is going to decrease the perception of a lot of the palate characteristics that get people not so excited about wine. And this is tannin, acid, alcohol, and bitterness. So tannin is that drying sensation you feel after you have a red wine, right? If you have a really big, heavy, tannic Cabernet, for example, pairing it with a steak or something with a lot of salt and acid is going to decrease those perceptions of tannins, and it's going to make that wine feel a little bit easier, a little bit smoother, more approachable to drink. Same thing for acid, right? If there's a lot of acid in your wine, sometimes pairing it with food will reduce that acid perception and it'll feel less like what we call an enamel ripper. Like some wines like Rieslings or Sauvignon Blancs have so much acid in them that it feels like it's literally ripping your teeth off. I'm a huge fan of those. I love them. Not everybody is that way. And then same thing for alcohol. This is especially true for Zinfandels. Zinfandels from California tend to have higher alcohol simply because of the nature of the grape and just the warmer climate of California. So we can talk about that in a whole nother specialty Zinfandel class, which I would love to teach if anybody's interested in it, because I think it's such a cool grape. So what to pair with a salty or acidic food? Like literally anything. You cannot go wrong. Okay. So we'll do a taste test with the lemon and the salt to prove this point. but salt and acid are your friend. On the other hand, super savory or umami type foods, they're going to increase the palate characteristics. So they're going to increase your perception of tannin or bitterness. They're going to increase the perception of acid and dryness. At the same time, they're going to decrease all of that beautiful fruitiness you get in a wine, as well as some sweetness. So savory food and sweet wine do not go well together. Okay. If you have something incredibly savory, like a mushroom burger would be a really good example of this. If you want to pair, stick to a very fruity white wine because it has no tannin, like a Sauvignon Blanc, or a low tannin red, like Pinot Noir or Beaujolais. Again, lower tannin red. So even if we're increasing the perception of tannin, it's not so overwhelming that it makes the wine feel a little bit unbalanced. Okay, how are we doing so far? Kind of making sense? All right. Spice, really spicy food. Spicy food will make a wine taste hot. And by hot, we mean we can taste the alcohol. So like if you think back to the last time that you took a shot of something, of vodka, tequila, it's been a while for me, pick your poison. What happens to you when you take that shot? You automatically start to feel heat develop in your body. So like for me, it's in my cheeks. I have some friends who start to feel it in their chest here. A couple people, their ears will start to get warm. That sensation is why we say this wine is hot, because we can feel the alcohol creating a burn in the body. So spicy food on its own will increase heat in the body. But then if you pair it with a wine, it's just going to increase that heat from the alcohol in the wine. So you have to be really careful with spicy food. And depending on how spicy it is, it can completely overwhelm all of the flavors of fruit, all of the sugar, and any of the body. So it'll, even if you're like drinking the heaviest Cabernet Sauvignon out there, it'll still feel like you're drinking water. So what do we pair with spicy food? A very, very low alcohol wine or beer. There's a reason we can stick to beer on this one. Okay, I cannot recommend a big red for this. Now on the other side, sweet foods. So who are my wine and chocolate fans? Anybody? I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. Okay. Not to say you cannot pair wine and chocolate, but you have to be careful. So a sweet or sugary food is going to increase the perception of tannin, of bitterness, of acid, of alcohol, all of the palate characteristics except for the fruit. It's actually going to completely remove all traces of fruit. Okay. There is one exception. If you want to pair chocolate or something sweet with wine, you need to find a wine that is as sweet or sweeter than the dish that you're pairing it with. Okay. You want to start out with a wine that is super sugary, super sweet, has plenty of fruit characteristic on it, because the dish is going to just is going to remove a lot of that. So you need to start out with something with very high sugar or very high fruit. So Tokai, Sauterne, ice wine, Trockenbeer Nachlese, which yes, I spent 10 minutes with a YouTube video learning how to say. Any of those intentionally sweet white wines, those are your best bet. Okay. Hold on, I just lost my mouse. There we go. How oily or fried foods will affect a wine. Basically, they're just going to decrease the perception of acid in the wine. A lot of times we say with wines that they're oily or flabby. That means that we're not able to perceive or taste any acid on the wine, and it feels kind of flat. If you were to take a regular wine with not a lot of acid in it, pair it with an oily or fried food, you would end up with a wine that is what we call flabby. Okay, so when you're pairing, say, fried chicken, for example, you need to start with a wine that has screaming high acid. A really popular one is, of course, champagne. Champagne has incredibly high acid. You'd also want to look towards your Sauvignon Blancs, your Chablis, your cool climate Chardonnays. White wines are really your friend here. Okay, you could definitely pair red wines with them as well. Cabernets, Zinfandels, Pinot Noirs are known for having higher acid. So just be kind of careful with that. All right. Here is one of my least favorite ones because it's really tough. Bitterness. So when I talk about how sweet or sugary foods affect a wine, and I talk about chocolate specifically, I always get the question, well, what about dark chocolate? Dark chocolate's primary characteristic is that it is bitter. And bitterness in food will increase the perception of bitterness in wine. So it will increase that tannin perception. The same holds true for kale, which had its moment, like the kale Caesar salads and kale dressings on food, right? That is not necessarily a super wine-friendly component. Whether it's white or red, bitterness in food is going to give that wine some bitterness. So you want to start out with some whites because there's no tannin in there. You might still get a hint of bitterness from the food, but it won't be increasing what's already there like it would in a red wine. Okay. And then lastly, I know I'm flying through this, and it's because I want to go through and do the taste test, because it's one thing for me to shout this out at you guys, but until you actually go through and taste the difference, it doesn't register. So intense flavors. This is where we get a lot of those Asian dishes like Indian food, Thai food, things that are intensely complex with a lot of different spices and components to it. That's unfortunately why they get the bad rap of we should just have beer with them. What they do to wine is that they decrease the flavor profile. They can overwhelm a wine's fruit. So if you're going to have Indian food, make sure you're choosing a wine that has a lot of complex, super prominent, pronounced flavors. You should be able to hold that glass to your nose and then just automatically smell a ton of different things to it. Right? You need a wine that's going to be able to hold up to all of that complexity and concentration in the dish. A really kind of classic one for Indian food is Riesling. Riesling is one of those white wines that just naturally has a lot of different aromas and flavors to it. If you've never experimented with pairing Asian cuisine with wine before, Riesling is a great place to start. However, there are so many other great additions. So these are all the rules, right? Like this is how this type of food is going to affect this type of wine. You can play with them. If you really love bitter food, go ahead and play around with wines to find the one that works for you. If you love spicy food, play around with wines until you find one that works. I would maybe find one that's a little lower alcohol. That's kind of the basis. Do you have any questions, anybody, on what we've kind of gone over so far?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about like with sweets and dark chocolate and them not like necessarily pairing very well because of the bitterness.
Yeah.
But I imagine, I mean, I drink a lot of white wine, as you know, but a lot of them tend to be sweeter. And so wouldn't that, by the transitive property, work well together? You know, like.
Yes, that's going to pair a little bit better than your drier white wine. That sugar is going to help keep all of the flavor on your palate. So sweet wines are really good. They're really fun to pair with a lot of these different kinds of dishes because they can hold on to their flavor longer than their dry counterparts. So play around with it. A super sweet wine and a bitter food, you're probably okay. A semi-sweet wine might be a little bit more difficult.
Got it. Well, I'm going to taste test some of them right now because half the things I have here are chocolates. So
yes, okay. I see no problem with that. Okay, so on your plates, you should have the lemon, the salt, and some sort of cookie, right? So when we do this, when we do our taste test, you always taste the wine first, then do a little piece of the food, and then try the wine again. Okay. And then we're going to look at how the wine changed. So first, let's go through the salt and acid. So what I'd love for you all to do is just take the lemon wedge and squeeze just a tiny little bit of the juice over the salt to kind of make a paste. Since they do the same thing, we'll pair them together because nobody wants to bite into a lemon wedge and nobody wants to put a whole like half teaspoon of salt in their mouth. It's not pleasant, but if you mix the two together, it's a little bit more palatable. Okay. So if everybody could come off of mute, I want us all to kind of participate in this together. Tell the partners and the dogs to shush. I saw that, Maggie. I loved it. It's okay. My dogs might bark in the background. I cannot stop them. So for your white wine, I have a Pinot Grigio. You might have a Sauvignon Blanc. You might have a Chardonnay. It might be different, but that's fine. What will change in the wine is going to be the same. So go ahead and take a sip of your white wine. It is past 5 o'clock here, so I'm not spitting. It's been a work day, so I apologize there. But notice specifically what's happening with the amount of acid. The more saliva you're producing, the more acid that wine has. Okay? Notice the body, how much it weighed on your palate or not. All right? And then just using your finger, grab a little bit of that salt lemon mixture and eat that. Swirl it around your palate just a little bit. It is so weird the first time, but you get used to it, I swear. Okay. And now go ahead and take a sip of the wine. Anybody want to shout out how the wine changed? Anything you noticed? There's
less acidic.
It's what?
It's less acidic.
It's way less acidic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was about to cry from the acid on this wine the first go round.
Same.
But I purposely picked a super high acid wine. Next go around, the amount of acid in the wine has not changed. However, I'm not feeling it as much, right? I don't want to cry. Did anybody else notice the body? Did it feel lighter or heavier the second go around?
It felt softer. I don't know how to describe that.
Yeah. That's weight, that's texture, that's heaviness coming around from the salt and the acid. So it gave this wine more body, weight, texture. Absolutely. Did anybody notice the fruit change at all? Go ahead and do it again if you need to. Like, that's kind of the fun of this class, is keep practicing and playing with it. So I admit part of the reason that I chose this Pinot Grigio is that it is a porch pounder or piazza pounder. It's light, easy, basic fruit. It's just like something I drink when it's really hot outside and I'm sitting out there reading a book and I don't want to think about my wine. But when you pair this wine with salt and acid, I taste more flavor in this now. Instead of just apple and pear and maybe a little bit of lemon, now I'm getting some like peach and mango and lime and a couple other different things. Tara, are you drinking the sea glass as well?
No, I have a Sauv Blanc.
Okay.
But peaches, like it came out for me too.
Yeah.
So
just like when you're cooking, right? You want to bring out the flavors of the dish. Well, if you want to bring out the flavors of the wine, pair it with something salty or acidic. One day I'm going to do a whole potato chip pairing guide. I still have yet to find anything that pairs with Cheetos. So if you have recommendations, please send them my way. Cheetos are my favorite.
Orange wine?
What?
Orange wine?
Maybe to match my fingers. Yeah. I got to play around with it because like the salt in chips is perfect for wine, right? So now I just have to go play with it. So Tara, next time you're in town or any of you are in Sonoma, we're going to play around with potato chip and wine pairings.
Fantastic.
Okay. So let's do this one more time, but let's do it with our red wine. Okay. So I chose the Klein Zinfandel. So let's go ahead and take a sip of that. And I want you, as you're tasting, to focus on how much acid is there, how much saliva you're producing. You can probably hear in my voice how much saliva I'm producing with this last wine. Pay attention to the tannins, how much dryness is happening on your cheeks or on your gums, above your front teeth. Pay attention to the weight. If you just let it sit on your tongue, how much that weighs. When you're done, go ahead and get a little bit more of that salt, acid, lemon mixture. I need to come up with a more elegant way to do that. And then try your wine again.
Yeah.
Ooh, I heard a yeah. That's good. How did the wine change? Anybody want to shout it out?
I totally noticed. I have a Wild Things Old Vine Zinfandel from Carol Shelton, and the first sip before the acid and lemon was like tannin, a lot of tannin, and after having that little bit of the lemon salt mix, it's now like super soft. Like all the tannins just went away. It's much smoother and more like fruitier.
Yeah, exactly. Like I immediately with mine got so much more blue fruit
Yeah.
on there, like blueberries that I couldn't smell originally, that I didn't taste the first go around. And the tannins on this one are actually pretty nice. So maybe this wasn't my best choice. I wanted one with like a little bit more aggressive tannins, but they didn't have the ancient vine Zinfandel, which I was looking for. So I had to settle for the old vine. But like it was silkier, smoother on those tannins, right? It didn't feel like I was drinking something super tannic. Did anybody notice a change in body?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it felt way lighter. Or what I'm learning is lighter because it didn't feel so like my mouth was overwhelmed. It felt like, oh, I can actually tell different things with it. So it just felt, yeah, lighter, I would guess.
Yeah, no, and because it got rid of all of that heavy acid and all of that heavy tannin, right now you're just like kind of back to drinking. Essentially what it is fermented fruit juice, right? And so like that's the kind of power of this pairing, especially with your younger Cabernets or Zinfandels, because their tannins haven't had a chance to like smooth out yet. So if you've got a younger, like, oh God, we're in 2025 right now. So if you've got a 2023 or 2022 Cabernet, pair it with something, give it some food to kind of help mellow them out and make this really nice and easy to drink. Okay, so for my sweet wine drinkers, let's just go through this one really quickly. We'll go through and drink. Oh my God, I love Tokai. Sorry, I can't help myself. So really full-bodied, super sweet, like a lot of sugar and heavy acid. Pair it with a little bit of salt and acid.
Oof.
Now, here's where it might get a little bit challenging. So with sweet wines, we need a lot of acid to balance out the sugar in the wine. So if you think about the time, like you had a lemonade stand as a kid, right? You would squeeze out the lemon and you would get a ton of that really acidic tart juice. you would put sugar in to balance it. The same holds true the opposite way. So if you have a really sweet wine and you don't have enough acid or like lemon type flavor in there, it's going to feel like you're drinking a spoonful of maple syrup. If you've never done that as a kid, I highly encourage you to try it this go around, because then you will see that is what a wine that is a sweet wine that is out of balance without enough acid feels like. Now, because salt and acid in food will decrease the perception of acid, sometimes pairing with a sweet wine will make it so that there's just not enough acid in this wine to balance out all of the sugar. It'll feel too full, too cloying. It'll feel like you're drinking that spoonful of maple syrup. So you have to be careful. Not saying you cannot do it, just saying it's something that you should keep an eye out for. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
In the rules from earlier, you said that salt and acid increases body, but with the red, it sort of like decreased the body a bit and made it easier to drink. Is that a result of the tannins feeling less, or what is that?
So it's more that it felt smoother.
Okay.
Yeah, I personally felt like there was more weight to it. It increased the body. However, when you remove all of that aggressive dryness, aggressive acid, it feels easier and therefore in some ways can feel lighter. So body full weight, like the actual weight of it, it increased the weight. It just made it more drinkable now, so therefore feels a little easier.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. On to the sweet pairing. So we're going to go through and do this one more time. We're going to maybe just, if you have some water nearby, kind of rinse out your palate. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and take a sip of the white wine. We're paying attention to the acid. We're paying attention to the flavors, paying attention to the body. And now go ahead and take a bite of your cookie, vanilla wafer, whatever it is you got. So glad today is my cheat day on my diet. Have I already done this pairing 3 times today? Yes. Okay. Now, go ahead and take another sip of the white wine, really paying attention to the flavor.
I took the flavor away.
It did, yeah.
It's gone, right?
Yeah.
You're just drinking acidic alcoholic water.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, it gave me a little bit of a shock, like on my tongue. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so maybe not the best pairing here, right? Because we know that sweetness in food will decrease the perception of sweetness, of flavor, and increase all of those palate characteristics that we talk about. Acid, alcohol, dryness, and bitterness. There's no tannin in this white wine, but it almost tasted a little bit bitter to me. Like, you know how when you bite into a green bell pepper, like that kind of bitterness, like an underripe green bell pepper, that bitterness, I got a hint of that in this wine. Now, you all might not have the same wine, so you may not have gotten that, but it's not an uncommon thing, especially if you're drinking a Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc tends towards green flavors like grass and asparagus. So if you pair it with a sweet food, you're just going to highlight that grassy asparagus note in the wine.
Yeah.
Okay. One more time. Let's do it with the red wine. Take a sip. Okay, paying attention to the tannin, the body, the acid, and definitely the flavor. Have some of your cookie. Oh, that was too big a bite.
That is terrible.
Yep, and then try the red wine again.
Mm.
I can see it on all of your faces. Maggie, Katie, Allison, I saw it. I saw everybody that. So
Yeah,
tell me, what changed?
That's not the business. That's not it.
Mine became super bitter. My red became like really bitter and just not something I want to drink again now, unfortunately.
Yep, I know. Katie, Allison, what are you thinking?
Same. We're drinking a Michael David Freak Show cab. It's really tannic.
Yeah.
That sort of just like increased the tannin
What I was gonna say.
and decreased all of the fruit.
Yeah.
So it just removed all of the pleasurable characteristics
Right.
of this, and it was just ugh.
It's just like all tannin.
Yeah.
It's all the like icky stuff that unless
Yeah.
there's fruit, like you
Yeah.
don't want.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So this is why I kind of like urge people not to do chocolate and wine pairings, because when they hear chocolate and red wine, they're thinking Cabernet, Zinfandel, Pinot Noir, you know, all of our dry wines. I'm having a hard time with it now. I also get press releases. So like as part of my day job, I get press releases from companies. And I swear every Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, and New Year, I get like the same press release. Come do our chocolate and Cabernet pairing. And I'm like, no, that is the fastest way to get people to stop buying your Cabernet. But again, there is an exception. Okay, so if you are going to pair sweet food with wine, you want to do it with a wine that is as sweet or sweeter. So if I were to take a sip of this Tokai, have a piece of the cookie, and take another sip, it's not going to affect the wine as much, right? It'll still feel maybe a little bit less fruity, a little bit less sweet. The acid is definitely going to be more pronounced. But if you like higher acid wines, or you maybe don't love sweet wines as much, this is actually a good pairing because it highlights the acid in there. Okay, this wine can hold itself up to anything sweet. Okay.
I did something interesting. I mean, I'm not totally playing by your rules because I don't drink
love it.
So I'm drinking a rosé.
Like syrup.
And then I have a dark chocolate, but it has sea salts on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a very interesting, like it tasted good, these two things together, which did not when I just had like my sweet and my white wine, that tasted not good. But this was kind of lovely. So I wonder if the salt just brought out the right things, or if this tends to be sweeter because it's a rosé or something. But
the rosé in general is not sweet unless you're talking a white Zinfandel, and then that's always a little bit sweet. But I would definitely say that the salt that's on that chocolate, and I think like most chocolates that have sea salt on it have big chunks of it.
Yeah, they're like chunks.
And that will overpower, especially if it's a darker or lighter milk chocolate, overpower the sweetness. So it's not as bad. It actually can kind of work.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. You're throwing me in, you're like into wine 102, 201 now. I'm loving this. You're like, how do we make things work? Right. So like I'm going through, this is salt, this is sugar, and you're like, screw it, let's throw it all together.
I'm so sorry. I couldn't buy a red
I love
wine.
it.
No, it just you got to make exceptions. You got to do it.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, so that's actually a really great way to say, like, you can play around with this, right? Now that you know the principles, what salt will do, what bitter will do, what sugar or acid or intensely flavored will do. Now you can play around with them and find a pairing that works for you. If you have a dish that you love or a wine that you love, now you can just kind of experiment. And honestly, most of the fun of wine is experimenting. As all of my friends know, I never go to a restaurant and order a Pinot Noir or Cabernet. I always order the funky thing that nobody's ever heard of. So that's the best part of wine for me. Okay, so I asked members to tell me their favorite foods. And now I want to throw it back to you. Now that you know, like, the principles, how would we pair some of these foods? So macaroni and cheese. something kind of fatty, something really rich, and possibly a little bit savory. Well, what would you guys pair it with? I'll throw you on the spot.
Something high acid.
Yes, love it. So champagnes, cool climate Chardonnays, reds like Cabernet, Pinot. Oh my God, Pinot Noir macaroni and cheese is like my indulgent night.
What, when you said it's like creamy and fatty, but also savory. How does the savory piece, like, what do you do to sort of solve for that?
I go with the lighter bodied red wines if I'm going to go red, like the Pinot Noir, or I go with something that doesn't have the tannin, like a white wine.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, tacos with spicy pico de gallo. Spice is the key word here.
Low
Tara.
alcohol
Yes.
contents.
Low alcohol.
Beer.
Beer. Yeah,
Beer,
exactly.
Yeah. Pair it with some beer.
No, or margaritas, right? No, you can definitely do tacos with wine. Just keep it lower alcohol. So most of your whites are going to be lower in alcohol than your reds. So this would be another one. Maybe you pair it with a lower alcohol, slightly sweet white wine. A white Zinfandel would actually be a really good example. It's technically a rosé. It's not California rosé, no matter what anybody tells you. But that would be another great pairing because both the sugar and the low alcohol will work well with that spiciness in the pico de gallo. Salmon with mustard. This was an interesting one that I got. It's the woman who sent it is not here, and I love her. She's my mother-in-law, so it's fine. I can say this. She knows I'm going to say this. You can pair it with anything, honestly. This is one of those kind of like every night dishes that if you want Pinot Noir, have it. If you want Chardonnay, have it. If you want Cabernet, go for it. All of this is really just salty, acidic food. The mustard gives it a little bit of bite, possibly a little bit of spice to it. Depending on the mustard, maybe err toward the white wines, but you could have it with anything. Okay.
I have
steak.
a question about how she prepares salmon with mustard.
I think it's like a mustard glaze that goes on top of it. Yeah.
I'm imagining like a side of like mustard dip, which just doesn't sound pleasant.
Well, I'm a huge mustard fan, so like if the salmon was cooked poorly, I might just dip it in the mustard.
All right, fair enough.
But I'm guessing that was like a mustard glaze.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. A steak, right? So the classic one here is a Cabernet, but you could have fun with steak. Like I would pair it with a Petite Sirah, which is like this really big, bold, super tannic, super acidic wine. It's harder to find a Petite Sirah out there, but they are so beautiful. And like the steak mellows everything out so that you can really taste the fruit. So that would be my pairing. And now the last one, chocolate chip cookies. What are we pairing with chocolate chip cookies?
Sweet wine.
Sweet wines, yes.
Now makes so much more sense why I just drink those sweet wines with my cookies.
Hey, you know what? We've all had those nights. I technically woke up sick this morning. So after this class, I am finishing off the cookies and the Tokai. You can't stop me. Might be watching K-pop Demon Hunters as well. If you haven't seen it, the song Golden is fantastic. It's been stuck in my head all day.
Oh no.
It's indulgent, it's fun, but like just know that like, hey, if it's like a breakup day, drink whatever you want with whatever you want to eat. Like no rules there. But now you know kind of what chocolate chip cookies do to the wine.
Maybe chase it with some water at some point and then eat your cookies.
Put some lemon juice in there between bites.
There you go.
Bite into a lemon. And then one that's not on here that I kind of want to throw out, chips and guacamole. Ooh, anybody want to like hazard a guess at like what they would pair with that?
I mean, it's got salty in it already, so I feel like we could pair it with the white wine that we did or any of them. Like, right?
Honestly, any of them. Yeah. And there's creaminess from the avocado.
Well, and then you
right?
got the acid if you're doing lime too with the guac. So
exactly.
Really
So now you've got all of those different components to play with. So you can kind of pair whatever you want. The only thing I would advise against is, of course, a sweet wine. Right? That won't pair very well, especially if you make it a little bit spicy. My partner, he just throws all of the red pepper in there. I can't do it. So like that's why I had to make some guacamole today to actually do a little bit of research on this one. So yeah, you can have some fun with guacamole. If you're going to have really salty chips, you're good to go. You can have some fun with this. I would try Sauvignon Blanc. I would try a Gruner Veltliner. For reds, I would honestly try a Chianti. I'm kind of curious. I've never done that one before. It's a weird one, but I think it could hold up. I'll get back to you.
I'm going to test out a Chianti because I love Chiantis, and I feel like chips and guac is just what you get in Arizona. So
there you go. Also, that's a fantastic pairing for a steak. Super high tannin, super high acid. That would actually go really well together. Okay. So your classic pairings. Normally, like I'm going to put this out there for all of you so you have this. But your classic pairings, they're there for a reason, right? We've gone over all of the different principles. Now you kind of have these. One of my favorites that we haven't gone through is Zinfandel and barbecue. Sometimes there's a smokiness to a Zinfandel, and that goes really well with the smokiness in a barbecue. And no matter how savory the barbecue gets, the Zinfandel can hold its own against it. So that's like a really big favorite of mine. Barbera and pizza, Barbera and Italy, like what grows together goes together. That's another fantastic one. Chablis and oysters, both salty, acidic food. They go nicely together as well. And then, of course, ruby port and chocolate, because ruby port is always sweet. So if you are like dead set on doing a red wine and chocolate pairing, do the ruby port because it is sweet and it has enough sweetness to counter that. Maggie, you're welcome for addressing pizza. Fun fact, Maggie once had us do a frozen pizza night where we taste tested all of the different frozen pizzas available. If you ever need a good girls' night, that's a fantastic one.
What came out on top?
Maggie, do you remember?
Wasn't it that it was like was it the wood-fired Italian one, or was it?
No, it was the one you could get at Sonoma Market. It was like it was like the I bought it like twice.
I feel like I remember that DiGiorno's did really well, and sadly, the Whole Foods brand didn't do so well. Remember that? I think that I can remember those things. There was also some wine involved. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of wine. So Chianti pizza, Barbera pizza, like literally any Italian wine and pizza, you cannot go wrong. Chianti, a good Chianti should sort of smell like a pizza too. If you don't smell a Chianti and get like herbs, oregano, that's not a good Chianti. You should get some herbs in your Chianti. Okay, last but not least is my last little like lecture slide. Because we talked about girl dinner earlier. How do you pair cheese with wine? All the different cheeses have sort of the same kind of components that we've talked about before, just in cheese form. So brie, super creamy, oily, like heavy kind of cheese that goes really well with champagne or any other high acid white. Gouda is a little smoky, a little funky, a little, the aged one's super funky. Pair those with a Malbec. The Malbec has enough concentration of fruit to hold up to that smoky and savoriness. An aged white cheddar. Cabernet Sauvignon for your reds, or Riesling. White cheddar kind of goes with everything. So I threw in two really popular white wines for you. Blue Gorgonzola, not everybody's favorite, but that moldy, salty funkiness, the sweetness in a Moscato d'Asti, as well as the acidity in it, will hold up really well against all of that mold. Goat cheese, another one of those like creamy, almost flavorless kind of cheeses. Like you really have to pair goat cheese with something else to get the most out of it. Pair it with a Sauvignon Blanc, because the acid in a Sauvignon Blanc is going to cut through all of that creaminess and then give it extra herby kind of flavor. Burrata, which I have in the refrigerator, and Pinot Grigio, perfect pairing. Again, two Italian classics. What grows together goes together. Parmesan or Pecorino, you need a Chianti to kind of go against all of that savoriness, all of that saltiness. It can hold up really nicely. And then Gruyere and Pinot, another one of our classic pairings. That one is like, it's so weird because Gruyere can be super nutty, and you pair it with like a really fruity Pinot Noir. It just kind of blends together nicely without either the cheese or the wine overpowering each other. It's almost kind of like Thanksgiving in a pairing, for lack of better words. Okay.
Question about goat cheese.
Yes.
Like the wine soaked goat cheeses that you can get at Trader Joe's and stuff. Those are so good, but they're usually like a Syrah soaked or like a red wine soaked. What like makes that so good, and would it be better with Sauvignon Blanc?
In those particular cases, I would maybe say like pair the Syrah soaked with Syrah, and kind of keep it in that same flavor profile. When I say goat cheese, I mean like just the plain basic goat. But have some fun, experiment with the others, but keep it in the same kind of family, I would say. Yeah. Okay. All right, that's it. Do we have any questions? I know I threw a lot of information out at you. Okay. The recording is going to be available. But for those of you who are not members of Novel Pairings, I have to throw out a little bit of a pitch. So Novel Pairings is really my way of combining two things that I love, which is wine, of course, that we've just gone through this course, and books. And so every month you get a monthly book, wine, and playlist pairing. And then we get together, we talk about the book. Other times throughout the month, you're going to get a challenge, a game, or an activity. This month, the game was actually a Which Bookish Witch Are You quiz. Unsurprisingly, I am Hermione Granger, to no one's shock, awe, or surprise. But that was another fun little quiz. You'll get free access to classes like this one, workshops, author and winemaker interviews. For our next monthly book club meeting, we are reading We Don't Talk About Carol by Kristen L. Berry, pairing that with a Pinot Noir and a really fun, interesting playlist. And the author, Kristen, is going to be joining us. So that is September 28th at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then, of course, other things you get with the membership, a community book swap, and a small business directory. So if you're interested in supporting smaller producers and smaller authors, I have that ready for you. It's $10.99 per month or $112 per year. You'll be saving 15% with an annual membership. And then, of course, you'll be locked into that pricing throughout your membership, no matter how much I raise prices over the coming years. So that's it. Anybody, any surprises from the group? I'm kind of curious. Any thoughts?
I am digging so hard the white wine that we had at the beginning with lemon and salt. It actually was so good. This kind of mediocre wine, that was okay, but a little too sweet for me. I think it was a little whatever, but as soon as I put it, I can't stop now. All I want to do is drink that wine, but do a little dip of salt and lemon first.
That's taking girl dinner to a complete new extreme now, I think.
For sure. I have not had dinner, so this is all I have consumed. This is not good.
Tara, what Sauvignon Blanc are you drinking? I'm curious.
I'd have to go look at it. A New Zealand one, though, because I also wanted to try something, wild. So I want to say Shetland, but that sounds like a pony of England rather than a region in New Zealand. So I'll show you later. I'm not sure at present.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other thoughts you'd like to share?
I was surprised by, like, I knew that food would enhance wine, but I didn't fully understand how it could detract from wine or like make the wine taste worse. So that was really enlightening and something I'm going to think about moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Yeah. I know it's so weird because we know the food affects the wine. And so like we kind of want to think that the wine affects the food, but it's not necessarily that way. And so we just kind of have to be careful about the food because we love wine so much and we don't want it to go wrong.
Exactly.
Right.
I kind of like too about the rules, the whole it's not an exact science because it is like if you're with your friends, if you're enjoying yourself, you're laughing kind of a thing. Doesn't matter what you're drinking or eating, you're going to be having a good time and you're going to think that pairing's amazing. So.
Oh, and good luck trying to find the perfect pairing for a whole table because everybody's tastes are different. This is why wine by the glass is such a great thing.
Definitely.
Right. All right. Well, that's it for today. I was only 6 minutes over today. I'm quite impressed with myself. Thank you all for being here. Please feel free to send any questions. Members, this recording will be available in our library about 48 hours afterwards. I have a really heavy workday tomorrow, so I am not going to be able to edit this one down. But thank you so much, every single one of you, for being here today. I hope you have fun experimenting with your wine and food pairings. And if you come across something that's really exciting, please send me an email, let me know what it is, and we'll play around with it in the next wine and food pairing course. All right. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, Erin. That was so much fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
See you all next time.
Bye.